husband went on a farewell date with his ex a week before our wedding. I'll never forget the moment I found those messages on Andrew's phone. It was almost 2 in the morning, and I'd been tossing and turning, too anxious about our upcoming wedding to fall asleep. The day before, we had tasted the final wedding cake samples and settled on a design that matched our color scheme: lavender and gold. I was supposed to be over the moon, but instead, my heart was racing and my mind wouldn't shut off. So I got up quietly, left Andrew sleeping in our bed, and wandered into the living room, hoping a glass of water and a few minutes scrolling social media would lull me into some semblance of rest. That's when I saw his phone light up on the coffee table. I'm not usually the type to snoop, but it was so late, and the sudden glow caught my eye. My curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up, thinking it might be an emergency message from one of his cousins who was flying in for the wedding. Instead, I saw the name Eva. I froze. Eva was his ex, the one I'd heard about maybe twice in casual conversation. The few times I'd brought her up, Andrew brushed it off, saying it had been over for years, that they had gone their separate ways, that I had nothing to worry about. And I believed him. We were a week away from saying our vows. Why wouldn't I trust him? But there it was, a string of messages, and the last one read, "So, was this our final goodbye?" My heart started pounding so loudly I could feel the blood rush to my temples. My hands shook. I knew it was a breach of privacy, but the fear and confusion were stronger than my guilt. I tapped on the conversation. Most of the messages were harmless at first glance. Jokes about old memories, references to some mutual friends they had back in college. Then I saw one from Andrew that said, "I don't want to hurt her, but I need to see you one last time. Let's just make sure we both have closure." That single line shattered something inside me. Closure. We'd been engaged for months. I thought the only closure he needed regarding past relationships was my love and our future together. Why did he need more from her? I stared at that screen for what felt like hours. My eyes burned. My stomach churned, and I felt as though the floor had vanished beneath my feet. Part of me wanted to shake him awake and demand he explain everything on the spot, but another part of me was too stunned to do anything. After a few minutes of just standing there, I put his phone down, sank onto the sofa, and tried to make sense of this. I began to recall all the small moments in the past few weeks. His slightly nervous laughter when I teased him about exes, the way he seemed preoccupied sometimes when we were discussing the wedding plan, or how he once mentioned needing space for an evening without explanation. At the time, I assumed the stress of wedding arrangements was wearing him out. I never suspected something like a so-called farewell date. At around 3 in the morning, I finally crawled back to bed, feeling like a stranger in my own life. Andrew was curled up in the covers, looking peaceful, and I wanted to scream at him, but I just lay there, wide awake, until dawn. The next morning, I was up first. He walked into the kitchen wearing a groggy smile, bent down to kiss me on the forehead, and asked if I had slept any better. I managed a weak shrug and said, "Not really." He brewed coffee for both of us, and I watched him carefully, noticing the phone in his pocket. I kept wondering if he'd received any more texts from Eva while he slept. We had a full schedule that day. He was supposed to drop by the tailor to pick up his suit, and I had to finalize the table arrangements with our wedding planner. I wanted to demand answers right there, but I couldn't figure out how to start. Should I say, "Hey, I saw your messages to Eva last night, and my heart is in pieces. Care to explain?" Or should I gently approach it, hoping to hear it was all a misunderstanding? In the end, I just let him walk out the door without a word, which left me tense and on the verge of tears. At the wedding planner's office, I sat with my phone in my hand, barely paying attention to the color swatches she showed me. My mind replayed each message over and over. I found myself blinking back tears as she asked if we preferred ivory or cream napkins. She noticed something was off, gently placed her clipboard down, and asked if everything was okay. I forced a polite smile and mumbled something about pre-wedding jitters. She nodded sympathetically, but I'm pretty sure she knew it was more than that. That evening, Andrew and I had plans to visit the new apartment we'd move into after the wedding. I arrived half an hour early, standing in the empty living room among boxes of kitchenware and small appliances we'd started accumulating. That's when my phone buzzed with a message from my best friend Carla. She wrote, "Hey, saw Andrew downtown yesterday. He was having coffee with a brunette. Thought it might have been you, but she had a different hairstyle. Everything all right?" My stomach flipped. So it was true. He had actually met her recently, not just texted. At least Carla didn't mention them looking romantic, but the very fact that he'd met his ex for coffee was confirmation enough. When Andrew arrived, I was pacing by the large bay window. I'm not a confrontational person, but adrenaline pulsed through me. And as soon as he set foot in the apartment, I practically pounced. "Who's Eva?" I asked, my voice shaking. He paused in the doorway. I could see the flash of panic in his eyes. He inhaled, trying to look calm, and said, "What's going on?" I repeated my question, more forcefully this time. He set his keys down, closed the door behind him and walked over, looking torn. "She's my ex," he admitted. "We dated a while ago before I met you." "And you met her for coffee this week?" I demanded, crossing my arms. Andrew swallowed and nodded. "Yes, we did meet. It was just a quick catch-up. She reached out because she's moving out of the country. I figured it would be a way to, well, just close that chapter." I felt a hot wave of anger and hurt wash over me. "Close that chapter? We're getting married in a week. You're telling me you need closure with someone else right now?" The question echoed in the empty room. Andrew's face tightened. "I didn't want to hide it from you. I just knew you might react this way," he said quietly. "I swear. It was just to say goodbye. I realized I never really ended things properly with her. It weighed on me for a long time, and I didn't want to bring that unresolved baggage into our marriage." His words stung. Did he really think sneaking around would somehow help us start married life without secrets? "If you were so worried about unresolved baggage, you could have told me," I snapped. "What hurts is you didn't. I had to find out from your phone messages and then from Carla." He opened his mouth, then closed it. I saw the regret in his eyes, but it didn't soften me. My entire body was trembling, and I wondered if I might actually faint from the stress. Andrew stepped forward. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I never meant to lie. I just thought it'd be easier if we didn't have that conversation at all. I didn't want to upset you." So yes, I was stupid. I should have been honest. I sank onto a nearby box labeled bed linens and stared at the floor. "Do you still have feelings for her?" I asked. The question felt like shards of glass in my throat. He paused before answering. "No, I really don't, but I think part of me felt guilty for how I ended things back then." I looked up at him, tears blurring my vision. "You can't do that a week before marrying someone else. It's just, God, Andrew, do you realize how this looks?" He exhaled, nodded, then kneeled next to me, tentatively placing a hand on my knee. "I know how it looks. I'm sorry. I'm here, and I want to marry you. That hasn't changed, but the damage was done. My trust felt compromised." We ended the evening with a promise to talk again later, and we drove home in silence. Over the next few days, everything turned into a swirl of confusion. In the mornings, Andrew tried to keep up with normal wedding tasks, confirming with the DJ, checking on the caterer, and in the afternoons, I would be consumed with doubt. My mother arrived in town, excited to help finalize any last-minute details. She noticed my puffy eyes, and I confessed everything to her. She was outraged on my behalf, ready to storm over to Andrew's place and demand an explanation. It took all my energy to convince her not to make a scene. I told her I needed to figure it out on my own. One afternoon, 2 days after I found out, I was aimlessly scrolling social media when a profile suggestion popped up. Eva. My heart lurched. We had 0 friends in common except Andrew. Her profile was open, so I clicked on it, half terrified of what I might see. Her pictures were mostly of her travels. Mountain hikes, city tours in Europe, photos of her volunteering at an animal shelter. She seemed so different from me, almost like a free spirit with no anchor. Scrolling further, I saw older photos. One of her hugging Andrew taken years ago in some festival crowd. They looked genuinely happy. That image made my stomach twist. I closed the tab quickly, but it was too late. The doubt was already creeping in, whispering that he might still care about her more than he was willing to admit. I spent another sleepless night on the sofa, hugging a throw blanket and staring at the dark corners of our apartment. Our wedding invitations were stacked neatly on the coffee table. Each card had a golden border and a fancy cursive font. A few were still unmailed because I couldn't bring myself to send them out, half fearing I'd be inviting people to a wedding that might never happen. The next morning, Andrew tried to kiss me goodbye before leaving for work, and I pulled away. He paused, studying my face. "I love you," he said softly. I couldn't bring myself to say it back, at least not then. Later that day, Carla dragged me out for lunch, insisting I needed a break from the tension. I picked at my salad while Carla gently pried details out of me. I told her about the messages, the conversation with Andrew, his so-called reason for meeting Eva, and how torn I felt. Carla listened patiently, nodding, occasionally interjecting with "wow" or "I can't believe he thought this was a good idea." Finally, she asked, "Do you think you can forgive him?" I looked down at my plate. "I don't know. Part of me wants to scream at him, but part of me wants to believe it was just a stupid mistake." Carla reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "No one can tell you what to do, but you need to figure it out before you walk down that aisle." As the days wore on, the wedding tension soared to a fever pitch. Andrew kept trying to break through to me, offering to sit down and talk at length, to reassure me. But my emotions were all over the place. One minute I wanted to hold him and forget everything. The next, I wanted to cancel the entire wedding. At one point, I told him I might call this off. "I can't marry you if I can't trust you." That made him panic. He started calling me multiple times a day, sending messages reminding me how much I meant to him, how much he regretted not being honest from the start. Then, 3 days before the wedding, something unexpected happened. I was at my parents' hotel, helping them figure out the seating chart when my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a woman's voice said, "Hi, this is Eva." My heart nearly stopped. She apologized for contacting me out of the blue, but said she felt I deserved to hear the truth about what happened. I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. At first, I considered hanging up, but curiosity and anger made me stay on the line. Eva explained that she was the one who reached out to Andrew initially, telling him she'd be leaving the country soon and wanting to meet one last time. She said she felt guilty for the way their relationship ended years ago, that it had been messy. She admitted she had hoped to see if any spark remained. But according to her, Andrew was distant and mentioned me repeatedly. He said he was about to get married and that he loved me. By the end of their coffee date, she realized Andrew was truly done with the past, and she accepted it. "I'm not trying to ruin anything," she said. "I guess I just wanted you to know that Andrew wasn't chasing me." I initiated the meeting. "But you should probably talk to him about why he kept it from you. He seemed guilty, like he didn't want you to be hurt." When I hung up, my mind was swirling with conflicting emotions. On the one hand, hearing that Andrew had insisted he was committed to me provided a sliver of relief. On the other hand, it didn't erase the fact that he lied by omission, sneaking off for that farewell date. The conversation with Eva played over in my head. She had been calm, even regretful, saying she wished she'd never reached out. My parents noticed me trembling afterward, and I had to explain what had happened. My mother was livid, muttering things like, "That woman should have stayed away," and "Andrew should have told you from the start." My dad, more measured, said, "People make mistakes. The question is whether you can forgive them." By the time I got home that evening, Andrew was waiting for me at the kitchen table, a serious look on his face. He told me Eva had called him too, informing him she spoke to me. He looked nervous but determined. "I want you to know everything," he said, taking a deep breath. "I'm done hiding anything. I met her because part of me felt I never got closure. When we broke up, it was abrupt. She moved away. I was busy with work and we left a lot unsaid. Then I met you, and you changed my life so fast I never looked back to tie up loose ends. But as the wedding got closer, it started to gnaw at me. I know that's selfish. I shouldn't have gone behind your back. It's just I was scared you'd be angry, so I lied. But I promise you, there's nothing there. I love you. I want to marry you. And I was stupid for thinking a secret meeting could fix everything without consequences." I was quiet for a while, feeling the weight of his words. There was sincerity in his voice, but could I really trust it? Slowly, I let out a shaky breath. "Eva told me she initiated the contact," I said. "But that doesn't excuse your lying. Do you realize how betrayed I've felt these past few days?" He nodded, eyes full of remorse. "I do, and I'm so sorry. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you if you'll let me." Tears slipped down my cheeks. "It's hard to believe you now," I whispered. "If we're going to do this, we can't have any more secrets." "None." He reached for my hand. "I understand," he said. "No more secrets." We spent the next 2 hours talking, crying, and trying to rebuild some semblance of trust. Part of me felt lighter, hearing him take responsibility. Another part of me was still hurt and afraid. The wedding was now only 2 days away, and my emotions were in complete turmoil. I could barely look at my wedding dress without feeling conflicted. That night, I slept in the guest room, needing some distance. Andrew respected my space. By the time the wedding day arrived, I still wasn't entirely sure I'd go through with it. My mother helped me get dressed, zipping up my gown while I stared at my reflection in the mirror. The lace bodice looked perfect, just like I had imagined. But my eyes had dark circles under them, and my expression lacked the radiant joy a bride was supposed to have. Mom put a hand on my shoulder. "You can still say no," she said gently. "We can send everyone home, or we can just do a smaller ceremony later." I nodded, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on my chest. The ceremony was scheduled for late afternoon in a small garden behind an event hall. Guests began to arrive. My father paced around in his suit, and Carla hovered by my side, telling me everything would be okay. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would break through my ribcage. Then, just before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, Andrew's best man knocked on the dressing room door. He handed me a small note from Andrew. I unfolded it with trembling fingers. In it, Andrew had written, "I know this is all terrifying. I know I hurt you, but I want you to know I'm standing out there, ready to be your husband if you'll still have me. If you can't, I understand. I'm yours either way. Andrew." The tears came in a wave. I pressed the note against my heart and closed my eyes. Despite all the heartbreak, I still loved him. And a part of me believed we could grow stronger from this mess if we committed to true honesty. So I walked down the aisle, my arm in my father's, tears shimmering in my eyes. I saw Andrew at the end, looking pale, worried, and hopeful all at once. In that moment, it felt like the rest of the world vanished, leaving just the two of us. My steps felt unsteady, but I reached him, and he gently took my hands. The officiant's words faded into the background. For a second, I almost forgot my lines because my mind raced with all the memories, both good and bad, of the last few days. When it was my turn to speak my vows, my voice cracked. I admitted I was scared, but I promised to keep loving him as best I could. I could see relief flood his face. We exchanged rings, sealed our promises with a trembling kiss, and just like that, we were husband and wife. Applause burst around us, music played, and I felt like I was in a surreal bubble, both happy and uneasy at the same time. The reception was a blur of hugs, toasts, and curious glances. My mother kept a close eye on me, occasionally asking with her eyes if I was sure about my choice. Andrew tried to stay by my side, occasionally squeezing my hand as if to say, "Thank you for believing in us." The celebration went on. People cheered for us, and for fleeting moments, I felt a genuine happiness. But late in the evening, after the bouquet toss, I slipped away from the crowd. I found a quiet corner of the garden and sat on a bench, the soft glow of string lights illuminating my wedding dress. Andrew soon found me, carefully lifting the skirt of my gown to sit beside me. He looked at me with a mix of gratitude and concern. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. I took a moment to answer, gazing at the stars overhead. "I'm okay," I said, resting my head on his shoulder. "But we have a lot of work to do." He nodded, exhaling a breath he seemed to have held all night. "I know. I'm ready," he said. And so we sat there, newly married, surrounded by a celebration meant to mark the happiest day of our lives. Yet, in truth, it felt like we were standing at the very beginning of a long road toward rebuilding what had been shaken. In the months that followed, I found myself replaying those events often, wondering if I made the right choice, if the lie about his farewell date was a red flag for future betrayals, or just a single bad decision. We started going to couples counseling once a week, which helped us unpack the insecurities and communication issues that led Andrew to think he couldn't tell me about Eva from the start. Slowly, I began to trust him more. He gave me open access to his phone, not because I demanded it, but because he wanted to rebuild that sense of security. Eventually, I stopped checking it. I realized trust can't grow if you're always looking over someone's shoulder. We talked a lot about boundaries, about not letting exes interfere in our relationship without open communication. Sometimes the memory of that painful discovery still stung, but we tried to transform it into a lesson on honesty. Andrew apologized more times than I can count, and I let him see how deep my pain was. He held me through nights when I had nightmares of him sneaking off. Now, every once in a while, I'll catch a glimpse of our wedding photos. I see myself in that gorgeous gown, wearing a fragile smile that hides how uncertain I was. It's bittersweet, but it also reminds me how far we've come since that day. Marriage is never perfect, and ours certainly had a rocky start. Yet, the fact we survived that turmoil so early might have reinforced our bond in ways I never expected. I still think about the possibility of how things could have ended. There's a version of this story where I walked away, canceled the wedding, and spared myself the risk of future heartbreak. But there's also this version, the real one, where I stayed and we fought for each other. So far, we've managed to honor the second chance I decided to give him. I won't lie. Sometimes I still feel a pang of jealousy when I remember Eva's name, or recall the way she smiled in those old pictures with Andrew. But each time, I remind myself of how he showed up to counseling, how he faced my anger and disappointment, how he stuck around to help heal the mess he caused. I see how we both grew from it, how we promised to communicate even our darkest fears. It's a slow process, not a one-time fix, but we're learning to navigate this life together. In a strange way, that farewell date with his ex forced us to lay all our vulnerabilities on the table before we fully started our marriage. Would I recommend that method of relationship building to anyone else? Absolutely not. But for us, it became our personal trial by fire. Sometimes I look at him sleeping beside me, and I feel waves of affection for the flawed, earnest man he is. He made a mistake. I made mistakes in handling it. And yet we're still here, forging a path forward. Love, I've discovered, is about constant discovery and choice. We don't just say "I do" once. We choose each other every day, even when it's hard. And so far, every morning, I still choose him. It hasn't been easy, and we both carry scars from that painful week before our wedding. But those scars are part of our story. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the real test of a relationship isn't avoiding every storm. It's being willing to rebuild after the damage, together.